Meeting of the Finance Standing Committee is called to order at 9:32 a.m. on April 24th, 2025. Thanks so much for being here with us today, everybody. Starting off with a roll call, Alderwoman Finlayson.
Present.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Present.
Alderman Huntley, present. Next, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written. Do I see a motion?
Move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. And next, we have the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the April 23rd meeting as written?
Move approval of the minutes as written.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Alderwoman Finlayson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this really is a point of personal privilege. 1 year ago today, I had the unfortunate situation in that I had a crippling incident. My knee happened to, I say blow out because that's the only way to describe it. Between walking from the office to the dais, my knee blew up to a basketball size. And I tried to take a Tylenol to ease the pain. My trusty assistant got a stool for me to prop my knee up on, which I still have today under this dais. Got me an ice pack, and I was in excruciating pain. And she said, I need to call the paramedics. And I said, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And it didn't, nothing I did abated the pain. And she finally called the paramedics. I took some Tylenol, immediately regurgitated during the meeting. And again, I apologize to my colleagues. Trying to stay here because the community organizations were presenting. And I didn't want to miss my opportunity to lend my support to those organizations. And Chief Romali, who's a godsend to all of us, was at the back door. And I'm saying, no, don't take me. And finally, after I got to say my piece, I said, okay. And they came in and they took me away. And they helped immediately, as they do, to deal with the pain, took me to the medical center, and I shouldn't say this out loud, but they stayed with me and made sure that I was taken care of. I had no fears, no concerns, and that's pretty traumatic to have to be taken out, by paramedics. But they took excellent care of me, and I could never say thank you enough to them for the care that they gave me. And most importantly, I know that the care they gave me is the same care they give to every one of our constituents. I really wasn't special. I just happened to be in a special place in City Hall. But that's the care that they give to all of our residents. And I know many of them, and I taught some of them. Their hearts are in the right place. And it has taken me a year to say thank you. But I am taking this opportunity now to say thank you to those men and women who took excellent care of me and are a perfect example of what our constituents can expect. And I guess it's timely that I'm making this speech before they do their presentation. It's all good. So anyway, what I have is a letter to go in their files. The chief said that is the best thing. And then a little token. But I'd like to acknowledge firefighter Amanda Hoxter, firefighter Russell Thomas, Lieutenant John Chrisman, Lieutenant Samuel Winner, Battalion Chief John Ortlieb, and Captain Raymond McRae. They are my heroes of the day. And so, Chief, I'd like to give you, and I have a letter which pretty much outlines what I just said for you. And then I have an envelope with the letters for each of them. And Miss Jeannie, I can send it to you electronically if that is helpful for putting it into their files. But 1 year ago today, and I am still, as you can see, kind of tearing up a little bit because you guys are awesome. Awesome, awesome. So thank you.
Thank you. We're glad you have a positive outcome. We know the men and women of the department go out every day and go out there and do the same job for everybody they run into. We will make sure that they are acknowledged, and we'll give them your letters. So we're glad you're here.
Thank you. And your leadership is, you set the example, let me just say.
Thank you.
So thank you. So you have a little, thank you.
Thank you very much for starting it off that way, Alderman Finlayson. I'm so glad that they were able to take such good care of you. It made such a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. With that, I will turn it over to Chief Romali. And Ms. Jackson, if you could put 15 minutes on the clock, please. Thank you.
Good morning. Doug Romali, Fire Chief. To my right is Deputy Chief Nathan Powell, who's in charge of operations. To his right is Deputy Chief Matt Lopez, who's our Administration and Professional Standards Deputy Chief. To my left is Jeannie Coughlin, who is our Fire Administrative Officer. And in the audience behind me is Joe Pilot, President of the Annapolis Professional Firefighters, Local 1926. We know that our presentation is going to be very quick because we know that more questions are probably better than to go through it. So we'll run through the presentation, just give you some few highlights. Mainly highlights for last year, which we're very proud of. We continue to is there were no fatal fires in the city of Annapolis. There hasn't been one since 2010. Every time I say that, I cringe a little bit because it could happen at any time, but we're proud, and we attribute that to the men and women of our department to go out here and do fire prevention. They respond to incidents. They're very aggressive when they get to calls, and that's allowed us to do that. We do, as you know, throughout the years, I've told you, we still have issues getting people to be ALS or paramedics. We do have a couple of our people in paramedic school now, and some of the capital outlay monies that you provided this year has been able to replace some obsolete equipment for us. The key to the people being in paramedic school is just as we go through it, we just need to realize that that's somebody that comes out of the field for a year and a half, that they're in class for that. So we have 2 in paramedic school. We have 4 in the fire academy. I have 1 in the police academy currently, one of our investigators. So we lose those individuals from the field for some time. So as questions come up about the overtime budget, that some of that is reflected in the overtime budget. For expected trends of the proposed budgets in here, the capital outlay money is increased, and that's going to replace some more obsolete equipment for us. Majority of that's going to go towards cardiac monitors. They're the monitors that are needed for the portable defibrillators, portable cardiac monitors. They're very expensive. We own about 12 of those in the department. These will be the new state-of-the-art cardiac monitors that need to be replaced, and some other upgrades there. Ballistic vest. When I started my first career, I never told you that we had to provide ballistic vests for firefighters and paramedics, but because of today's age and times, we do have to do that. Those vests are just like the police department vests. They have to be replaced every 5 years. So they're on a cycle. Unfortunately, we sort of got out of the cycle. This will get us back onto it, and then we will be on a program where we're not having those large purchases. We'll purchase so many a year. The other ones are just ongoing replacement of obsolete equipment, and then the portable radios have been upgraded, and we continue to buy radios every year just to continue with that upgrade. The performance standards, they're in your budget book. I didn't really put them up here because the ratings are in there, and our performance standards and our times are in there, but they're all based around these 4 core concepts, and that's firefighter safety, where we're tracking training, cancer in the fire service. As you know, I've told you more and more, cancer in the fire service is becoming a major concern, and it continues to be with the carcinogens that are out there. So we track that. We track workers' comp or vehicle accidents. Community safety is the number one concern for us. That's our ISO rating. It's our responding to incidents and meeting our response standards. Daily staffing and community outreach are all part of those. But like I said, they are in the budget book. We review them every month, and we continue to move those forward. The next slide basically tells you about our budget. And if you look at it, that big orange part of it, our budget is basically all personnel and salaries and benefits. It's getting the fire engines and the medic units out on the street every day. It causes us some challenges because most of that are uniform positions. We do not have a lot of support services. And we have firefighters that are trying to pick up some of those services, and that causes us some issues. But if you look at the chart, 88%, it's basically over 90% if you take out some of the capital outlay monies. That's all for us is benefits and salaries for our employees. And just right off the top, we just broke it out for you for some of the capital outlay and the fleet services. While it's in our budget, right off the top, $775,000 goes to fleet maintenance. That's for our vehicle replacement. That's not for vehicle replacement, it's for vehicle repairs, fuel. It helps us fund the mechanics and fleet maintenance there, and which is under central services. So it shows what our department, that's what comes out of it's what it costs for our fleet every year to maintain those mechanics and the fleet. And then the capital outlay money that's in there actually will be going to central services because they take care of our buildings, but 2 of our fire stations have outdated boilers and they're going to be replacing that. So when you look at ours, the capital outlay looks pretty higher than normal this year. Some of that is because of those boilers, and it's I believe they're using one-time funds for that to replace that, and that was just placed into our budget. And just to go along with that, it's not on the slide, but just some of the concerns that we would bring up as you're going through the budget process as you move forward. The fleet replacement budget, there's funds in there for it. I've talked to the budget analyst and the fleet manager. I know that working with finance, they're working at ways to do it because the amount of money in there for the number of equipment and throughout the city that needs to be replaced is small. So they're looking at options there. We do have a pumper and a medic unit in the budget, and it's needed because, as you know, we're going through the process for the Forest Drive pumper. It's taken us 3 years to get. We will get that pumper by summertime, but you approved that close to 3 years ago. This pumper that needs to be replaced will be well over 20 years old. We need to order it now to get it in there because they're telling it's a 4-year build time. But that pumper cost $1 million. There's only like 1.5 in there for the vehicle replacement fund. So they're looking at options from lease purchases. Every year we have to replace a medic unit. We have 7 medic units in the city of Minneapolis. They're basically first line units for 5 years, 2 years reserve, and they're out. So with that, every year we need to replace one. Because of the demand, it takes 2 years to get it. So we're off that cycle anyway. But those are 2 large purchases that are in there. And we just wanted to bring that to your attention as you talk to fleet services and they talk about the fleet maintenance budget, that's important to us. And does sound like finance and the budget officer has an option on how we can get some of those purchases because the fleet budget is for the entire city. It includes dump trucks, police cars, that type of stuff.
I heard pumper, but I didn't hear the other piece.
Medic unit, paramedic.
Medic.
Unit.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
they're the 2 large purchases. Medic unit's running about $450,000, and the pumper's over $1 million. If we wanted to talk electric, it would be $2.2 million for an electric pumper. Some of our other concerns are just staffing level concerns as we work through the budget, and I think that's. Do you have anything else on that part before we go into questions? So yeah, there's one other item that it just been brought to our attention: the increase in electric costs from BG&E. Our current budget is going to be over budget for that, and it was based on calculations that we thought would meet that. We don't believe it's going to be there, so that may become a concern. I talked to the budget analyst earlier today where they're going to check with that, but there may be some concerns. There might need to be increase in the electric budget for the buildings because it's probably going to run 200,000, 300,000 over. It looks like this year, right?
No, only 35.
35 or 40,000, yeah, but the amount is not going to be appropriate for next year, especially if we have a winter similar to what we had this year. With that, I think probably that's our presentation. We kept it short and sweet so we could go into budget questions because that's always the topic.
Wonderful. Thank you. Really appreciate it. That was a very informative presentation. I like that you have this pie chart here. That's helpful. I do. You can. Alderwoman O'Neill knows I like pie charts. I'll say also, I really love the performance measures that you guys have. They seem very data driven. They are very much about outcomes. I really appreciate what they are, and I appreciate that on almost every single one of them, you are exceeding your metrics. One did raise a question to me, and I feel like there's a good chance I know the answer, but I was looking at track the numbers of complaints and gratitude received from citizens. And it looks like on both accounts, that's significantly down from last year, right? You had 13 complaints compared to 13 complaints in FY24 compared to 1 in FY25 actual, but you also had 44 thanks compared to only 7. Oh yeah. So we'll count that as 8 Alderwoman from Alderwoman Finlayson. But just wondering, so that tells me because they're both down that maybe we're not tracking that as closely, and I'd just like to get your reaction if you think that's the case or why that would be pretty different when everything else looks the same or better.
So that doesn't include like the thank yous or the everyday stuff on the street. Those that are tracked are actually ones that are written in writing either to the city's website or to our office. We do not get a lot of complaints about our service.
Sure.
Every now and then, there are some about patient care and some minor issues, but the complaint part of it is typically pretty low. But we take them all seriously. We look into all of them and we provide feedback to the individuals. And the thank yous are just that. As the Alderwoman said, it just happened a year ago, and she's given us we can add another, 8 to 10 to the list there. So, but that's all that is.
Okay. So I guess I'd like to actually ask you the question again. Why do you think that it's lower in both categories this year than in last year?
Any thoughts?
Are you comparing the full year?
Well, it's
Because
FY.
that would only be for half of the year
Right.
in the budget.
Sure. It's FY. It says year to date, but it's still also.
Could you get on the mic, Amy?
So I would say the complaint part of it is just because the members of the Annapolis Fire Department are out there doing an excellent job, and they are providing that quality standard that's out there, and that's why the complaints are down. As for the thank yous, we get them every day, verbally. It's just the amount of people that actually write in is there. So I couldn't tell you why. I can tell you they're still out there doing an excellent job, and our more worries are when we get complaints and we're not getting those. So we think we're doing an excellent job there.
That's a good
What we
perspective.
submitted to the budget was only 5 months.
Oh, okay. So it's 5 months. So that's year to date as of
As of the
December.
time
Okay, that makes more sense then.
I think Chief Powell might
Alderman,
have a
thank
little-
you. Just as a piggyback and a follow-on, we are working through an internal strategic planning process currently. It's being led by Chief Lopez. We're preparing and poised to launch a community-based survey. So we're actually really looking forward to hearing some direct feedback from our community about how they think we're doing and where we can grow and improve services. So just a side note that we will actually be engaging with the community and reaching out for that in the next month or so, right? Hopefully.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it. I will turn it over to Alderwoman O'Neill for any questions she has.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the reports and the brevity of it and the information. 2 questions. At a listening session on Clay Streets about a month ago, I know it was primarily police-based, but it was brought to my attention that it could be public service and safety-based, and to see if there are ways that we can get the Annapolis Fire Department out into some of our communities. I know that you do some outreach, and can you talk a little bit about any outreach, touch a truck events and things like that you're doing?
So we have several programs out there. They range from fire safety, trip and fall hazards for the elderly. Your Life Matters is a big one, which we go out there and provide hands-only CPR training, Narcan training to the individuals, and some stop the bleed training. So there are many programs that are out there. A lot of it is geared on the community events that are coming up and community outreach that is done by the community associations. We're always available to come out and do any specific program that's out there. And we do watch the trends in the community. So if we have had several fires in one community and there were kitchen fires, we'd go out there and try to do some door-to-door stuff. But usually it's not going door to door. It's more of the community events and the community organizations. They ask us to come in and do those. And when we see there's an issue, I can only imagine that call on Clay Street was involving the traumas and but that would fall more into the CPR and the hands-only CPR aspect of it and the stop the bleed stuff. But we are available to do it if the communities are looking for that.
That's great. And I happened to be in the fire department last week or 2 weeks ago because we were using your space to put some things together for Food Fridays. And I saw a flyer about a wound care clinic. I think that's what it was called. And Lee could actually tell you more about it. But it would be great if we could better communicate that, if that's open to community members.
So we have recently partnered with the police department and the Office of Emergency Management when it comes to public outreach and public education, because a lot of what we hear from the community is they're not getting notifications rapidly. So we are looking at ways to enhance that. And I don't know if you've seen some of our social media posts over the last few years, but we have had a larger presence on that. I've detailed a captain to public education and information for our department, and he's working with the police department's PIO, and they're working hand in hand together to make sure that all those programs are out there, that rapid response to community concerns is out there, and we are enhancing that. So I think that as we continue to move forward, that you'll see a greater presence when it comes to that and getting that out on in the social media post and the community events status.
So all that to say, all of those things are included in what you have in your budget.
So they are, and I guess we will get into that during the enhancement part of it. But yes, that was one of the items that's actually in the budget that was requested.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Good morning again. Chief, I kind of missed the old-fashioned presentation where you gave us all your stats. Could you have a
So
quick and
we run over 13,000 incidents a year. 75% of those are EMS calls. But the 13,000 incidents don't really reflect the number of incidents we're responding to, because that's just giving an incident number to a scene. So when we have multiple units on a scene, that number is greater. So we actually respond. We have over 22,000 responses every year, but it's 13,000 incidents that we responded to. But that's generally what it boils down to. Is 75% of it is EMS related. We take sick and injured people to the hospital. And then there's the 20-some% is fire related, and then we go into the service calls and the other aspects of it. But that's just a general overview of what the department's responding to.
Thank you, Chief. I think that speaks to the volume of work that you do that needs to be verbalized, because we have no clue how often you are responding to whatever the call is. And it's pretty significant. Pretty significant.
Yep.
Are we finished with the renovations at Forest Drive?
So that's the only other item I didn't bring up on as we're going through the budget. There are capital projects that are still in the budget to make enhancements to the fire stations. They are continuing to go. The restroom facilities have not been completed yet. There's money in the current budget. I believe it's gone out to the design process already, and they were going to put out an RFP for getting that work done. But that is still in the process of getting done for that, for the Eastport station and the Forest Drive station. There's other projects in there for some of the floors, some of the painting, and there's ongoing things in the central services budget to enhance our stations, but they are in need of continual repair.
How do we expedite it? I mean, the women need restrooms on Forest Drive,
The only thing I can say is it has been a long process. Donovan, who is the engineer that's in charge of that, is working and moving that forward. They actually have the design, so it's coming. I can say that it is finally really moving forward. I just don't know when they're going to be able to start that. But the funding is there, and then any additional funding was put in this budget to make sure it got completed if it went over.
So that should be a question I should ask for Director Burr.
It would be the new Central Services Director.
Or
'cause
is that where
it falls under
Donovan-
Central Services now, and all those will be there. And I haven't met with the new director yet to do the tours of the stations. I did get an email from him the other day. He wants to go around and look at our facilities because they're aging, and office space is a concern, and just space in the stations. But yeah, the women's facilities have been pretty bad for some time, and we have several women working in the building, and we only have one stall for them or one shower. But we are going to enhance that with these, and it's we're going to unisex restrooms with showers in those so that they'll be able. We won't have the issues we're having today, and it will be updated.
I can rent out my lower level because
We
I'm right around the corner.
we appreciate
the
that.
ladies can come over to my house.
We
and,
appreciate that.
Chief, I think one other question or maybe a comment. It looks like you're doing a lot of crossover training. I'm looking at the firefighters that are being trained as paramedics. Will they continue to serve in both capacities as needed? Or once they're trained as paramedics, do they only stay in the medic corps?
No, they're cross-trained. Every member of our department, every uniform member has at least an emergency medical technician certification. The paramedics is the next level with advanced life support. So they're all cross-trained to do that. So they'll be riding medic units, but they'll still have opportunities to be on suppression pieces and riding other equipment. So they won't be strictly on the medic units. But we need a certain number of medics to continue to do rotations for our personnel to give them breaks off of the medic units. And we haven't gotten to that level yet, but we're continuing to do it. So we have some people that have been here for a little while that are in class now, and we've had some of the most recent hires have been actually told that they are hired as paramedic positions, but they're going to have to go to paramedic school. So we're phasing them in. But that paramedic school is anywhere from 12 months to 24 months to get that completed.
It wasn't really a question, but I wanted you to be able to say exactly what you said, because the community needs to hear that we are making excellent use as far as being able to cross-train all of our folks.
Yeah, all of our uniform people wear multiple hats, and that's what makes our department so special. And that they're all engaged. They all like to do that. We have a Marine unit, we have a hazardous materials unit, but that's all Krause staff. They're not just there for that. They're all firefighters that have those specialties, and they get trained into those specialties.
Well, thank you, Chief. One last question. Did I hear you say that your BG&E bill was decreased?
No, it's increased.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the concern.
I was going to
And-
say, how did you do that
Yeah,
when
no,
everybody
that's-
else in the
that-
world is?
That's the
Okay.
concern, that there's not enough money to pay the BG&E
Yeah,
bill.
okay.
Yes.
I misunderstood that, so that makes perfect sense. So you're in the same boat as everybody else.
Yes, we are.
Unfortunately. So thank you, Chief. Thank you to your staff. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Well, actually, that's a great segue, Alderman Finlayson. I appreciate it. One of the things I was going to ask you guys about is where in the budget, maybe this is a question actually for our finance or budget manager, but where would we see that increase in BGE costs?
So electricity rolls up to, I believe it is contractual services. I guess a better way to look at it is if you go into OpenGov and that link that I sent you, and you're going to expand the contractual services.
Can you give
Category?
us a page?
So it's not going to be in your budget book. You
Oh,
have
it's
to
not
go
in-
within the link that I sent you for OpenGov,
Yep.
where it gives you that account by account breakdown. It's right under. It's in the contract services category, the first line.
It's 108,000 in that line.
Yes, 108,000.
Okay. I might need you to show me how to get there in the portal.
Okay.
But thank you. Chief, don't take this personally. This is not targeted at your department in any way, but someone suggested to me at my town hall last night that I start asking this question, and so it's going to be a consistent one folks will see from me going forward. If the city council or the city manager said to you, you've got to cut 10% out of your budget, where would that come from? Where would be the first places you'd look?
That would have to come from operations, and we would have to not run a piece of fire equipment or a medic unit or something like that. That's where our services are. It's putting those units on the street. We have some people in training and some people in our EMS administration, but that's very small groups. So as you saw, all our budget is basically salaries and benefits.
Yeah.
So we have very little operating budget. We think we do very well with the budget that we have, but it ties our hands. It really does, and we understand that. But we're also stewards of taxpayers' money, and we get that for it too.
Yeah. What would be the impact on that for residents? They would see a longer response time.
So there would be longer response times because another unit's got to pick up those calls, and basically just take example that we were not to run an engine company at the Eastport station and we relied on the Annapolis Next station. Well, that engine at the Annapolis Next station that's already running those 1,500 calls of theirs or whatever, and now has to pick up these other calls. Somebody else has to run those 1,500 calls there. So the Forest Drive station has to go there. So it's this whole big impact and circle on how that would happen. And it would also affect our ISO rating, which is currently the highest we can get.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate you answering the question. Again, not targeted to your department specifically.
Yeah, we understand.
Can you talk a little bit about your vacancy rate? One of the things we heard is that a lot of the surplus in FY25 is because there's a significant number of vacancies in APD, which I think of as the most comparable department to fire. And I have not seen that you guys have at least tell me if I'm wrong, but I have not seen that you guys have a significant vacancy rate. Would you talk about why you think that is, or again, correct me if I'm wrong?
So I personally believe that people want to work for the Annapolis Fire Department. I know that there are times where all of our employees are frustrated, but we don't have a lot of people leaving. So we are doing something right. And that savings and vacancies that you heard from finance did not come out of the fire department. Currently, we have an office associate position that's vacant in the fire marshal's office down here, which is part of the permitting process, which we really need to fill, and we're in the process of doing that. And we have one firefighter that just left to go to another department in Las Vegas, and that's because his family wanted to move back where they were from. But we don't have that large vacancy rate. We have the challenges of just getting paramedics and people through the ALS part of it, but we have people that want to come to work for the Annapolis Fire Department, and if we had that vacancy rate, it just means our overtime rate goes up. And as you can see, our overtime rate is pretty high now, just because of our daily staffing levels.
That's great. No, I appreciate that. You were mentioning the additional cost of an electric pumper, and that's a pretty stark difference there. I'm just curious if you see significantly different delivery times, because you said, I think, 3 years to get I'm assuming that was gas-powered pumper, or 4 years?
It's up to 4 years for a standard pumper.
What would it be for an electric pumper? Do you happen to know?
It would probably be half of that because they're not building nearly as many of those. And
so we would potentially be able to get it faster.
we could potentially get it faster, but there's some infrastructure deals that really have to go, that we have to look at there about the charging stations within the firehouse itself and those avenues. Frederick County has one on order. Theirs will be here at the end of the year, so we'll be able to take a look at that. DC had one that they were getting ready to purchase, but I don't know that purchase has happened yet. And I think Montgomery was looking at one. So they are looking at a couple of them. They're still moving along. We actually met in city manager's office was there, and we had an electric fire engine come out to the Eastport Fire Station so they could see what it is. The technology is improving. They're called electric, but they are really hybrids. They still have to have diesel motors on them, because when we have an incident scene where you have to go out and pump a fire for multiple hours, you can't have the batteries not charging. So then the normal generator and the motor kicks in at that point. But
Interesting.
The options out there. But like I said, the concern we have is technology is still growing with it, and it's double the cost.
Right.
And that's what our concern is.
Yeah, I was trying to think, like, when you tell me that double the cost, that's a gigantic downside. I was trying to think,
huge.
are there potential upsides? But it seems unlikely that any would outweigh that big cost. Our deputy city manager.
Jackie Guile, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability. I have worked for the fire department on, considering a electric vehicle. There are grant opportunities where you can apply. We can apply. They are usually federal grants for support in purchasing the electric fire trucks, specifically a pumper truck. So what you have to make up is the delta between what a gas-powered or diesel-powered fire truck would be in an electric fire truck. Some percentage
Sure.
of that delta. So it's not the full $2 million. If you qualify for the grant to come up with, it would be that delta.
Well, we'll hope we still have federal government by the time we're here next year. I wanted to also check in about why, and apologies, this is solely just my ignorance. Why is it that a medic unit gets replaced every 7 years, whereas the pumper is, you said, about 20 years old and needing to get replaced? What's the huge difference in those replacement schedules?
Pumpers used to be 20 years old. We'd like to, and we get the best bang out of the buck for ours. Most jurisdictions aren't getting 20 years out of pumpers. You're talking more of a 10 to 12 year purchase and replacement at that point. The medic units, they're on F450, F550 chassis, so they're on pickup truck chassis. And, we're running them up and down the street all day long. And it's just that they just, at that point, after 5 years, we've put so many miles on them, it's time to put them in reserve. And we have a pretty good process set up to do that. And our fleet is in decent shape now. Our fleet's not in real bad shape when it comes to that, but it's coming back to haunt us now just because of the amount of time it's taken to get the new units. And that's where the concern is.
Gotcha. That makes sense. The medic units are diesel as well?
No, we've
Okay.
gone back to gasoline medic units. Part of the reason is the emission standard problems we have, the short time periods and responses we have in the city from here to the hospital. That regen of the motor was causing us a lot of problems with the medic units. We have to do that with the larger apparatus too, the regens, but the medic units were causing that. And working with the fleet manager, we switched from a medium duty to a light duty chassis. We went back to a pickup truck chassis, and we went to the gasoline power. Now, mileage itself isn't the greatest, but it seems to be working well for us, and fleet management likes it. And I believe our people like those medic units that we have currently.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you for explaining so much of that to me. I think I had one other question for you in here. Maybe not. I'll steal a question from Alderwoman Finlayson, actually. Were there any enhancements that you think you might have needed in here that are not included in the mayor's budget?
So that goes back to where we were talking about the PIO and the joint thing with the police department. There were 4 enhancements that were asked for that were not in the current budget. 3 of them relate with personnel. So the top priority was an IT person. I had worked with ITS and Brian and talked to him about concerns we have because we are a lot data driven. We've switched over our report management system. We've switched over our page out systems and our staffing systems. We have firefighters, uniformed firefighters that I'm trying to, as collateral duties, be IT specialists, and it's just not working for us. And I will let one of the deputies talk a little more about it because they hear about it every day. But what I can tell you is that our thought process was to put money in contractual services, which would free our uniformed people to do the jobs they want to do and to get us on par where we need to be. We are a 24-hour emergency services operation. What comes with that is our MDTs or our iPads in front of the medic units. And while we're tied to the county for dispatching, those hardware and all are City of Annapolis stuff. And when they go down, that affects us with responses, affects us being able to look up fire hydrants for structure fires, mapping for calls. So we need somebody that can get on that along with our report management system and doing software and actually writing programs. The position to me doesn't necessarily have to sit in the fire department. It could be an ITS position that's geared to the fire department but works out of technology services there. I can tell you the police department have at least 2 IT people doing their stuff. We don't have anybody. Chiefs, one of you want to jump in on that?
Chief O'Malley covered most of it. What he kind of maybe glossed over or didn't deep dive on is this transition to our new records management system, which is in our goal moving to a singular platform. So we're not paying for multiple software packages. We're moving to a streamlined one singular records management system that encompasses our fire reports, our staffing. It integrates into payroll. It improves efficiency dramatically within our organization. The unfortunate part of that is I have 2 fire battalion chiefs who are executive level leaders doing a software implementation where they're having to do data entry. They're having to take time away from their critical other core functions to address this, where they're also not necessarily trained or qualified. They have learned along the way and they've done a phenomenal job, and both have invested hundreds of hours of their own time uncompensated to see this project through, which we're very appreciative of. However, that has come at the expense of them not being able to do what their job should be and where their focus is. So as we kind of finish the rollout, we're probably, I'd say 75% through the modular rollout to the singular records management system. We look to transition that to more of a maintenance role and finish the build out, and we can get these battalion chiefs focused back on managing their one is an operational shift, the other works for Chief Lopez in planning, and get them back focused where we really need them to be to continue to grow our organization.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I can certainly appreciate the virtue of working a little bit smarter rather than harder there.
Now, we did have a conversation earlier, and we know that contract services has been increased for ITS. I don't know that would be enough to, cover our needs, but we definitely need somebody assigned to the fire department that can do that. And they help us out, and they send people over when they can. Obviously, we work with Carrie with some of the programming of Telestaff and the fire software program and how it integrates with our payroll system. But that was part of our concern before. I have office associates that every 2 weeks we're doing 4 days because we have 5 shifts. We have four shifts in day work that they were auditing payroll. So for 4 days, every 2 weeks, they're auditing payroll and taking away from that. So the systems we're going to are going to increase our efficiency greatly, and we're getting there, but it's going to be an ongoing thing because technology is ever changing within the fire service, and we definitely need somebody associated with that position. The other one was just the managing of the personnel in the department. As you said, I've detailed a captain to do the public education outreach, the PIO aspect of it. I have a captain that's running as a logistics officer, and what we asked for is some contract positions, see if it would work to bring somebody in to manage that so that I could have that captain actually do functions within the fire service instead of just ordering equipment. And it's a full-time position for all our needs, our medical supplies and that. But that was a way to at least enhance it, bring in somebody that's has to be trained as a firefighter, that we don't have to worry about ongoing training there, and we could move those people around. The other one was, as you would see in there, was our overall goal. We're doing a strategic plan. I know that last year you saw the study from the International Association of Firefighters. It's very important for all of us with the national standards to get the 4 people suppression crews. It's hard to do because it costs a lot of money and ways to do it. So what was in there, we have the truck company at Eastport, is part of their day is they staff our peak time medic unit. And last year we had asked for some funding for the peak time medic unit. We do believe that funding would be picked up with EMS billing. Currently we bring in over $3.5 million to supplement that helped supplement the budget for EMS billing. I believe it was close to 3.8 this year, but we continue to do that. But that peak time medic unit, we cross staff currently, so we have to put that ladder truck out of service so that they can run calls, and they only run calls in the city of Annapolis. They don't run mutual aid calls for us. So it's when all our city medic units are out and there's a call in the city, they get off of that suppression piece, which takes away from the duties and not having that unit available. So part of that was that, and then the increase. We know we can't do it overnight because of what it would take, but the number of people that we asked in there would take up for the peak time medic unit to stop some of the cross staffing, and would allow us to at least start with one of our specialty units as 4 people, and then maybe over some time as the strategic plan continues to move forward, look at how we can do that. That was all geared towards, we asked for 10 positions. We knew that we're asking for a lot because that would be $1 million. But any positions that we can add there would help. I need 30 people per shift to have 25 working. We have 25 people on the street every single day. That's the minimum staffing every day. So with 30 people, we have 4 people on annual leave. We're down already. You get somebody on sick leave, you're already at overtime. I talked to you earlier about we have people in school. They're going to be in school for a year to 2 years, so they're off the field. So we're filling those positions in overtime. We have a lot of soft vacancies. Unfortunately, we have some people that are injured currently that are working through their workers' comp process, and we're hoping to get them back. But every time that they're out of the field, that takes away from us too. And the way our staffing levels are, we don't have that 30 per shift currently. But that's the ultimate goal, is to have the 30 per shift, and then to actually go up to 31 to start with this at least one suppression piece being a 4-person crew to help move that goal. So that's the national standard, is to have 4 people in fire apparatus. We run 3. We are not violating the standard currently because we send so many people to a structure fire. We have it built into it where you can take 2 units together to make crews to establish that. With our mutual aid partners, we do that. So we're not violating anything, but I can tell you as fire chief, I want to see 4-person suppression companies. I can tell you that our local, the International Association of Firefighters, it's one of their top priorities to get us there. We know we have to start somewhere, and that was part of that number 2 enhancement that we had asked for. So, if there's anything there, we do believe the IT position is very important to us in there. And then the 4th enhancement was just office space because of what we talked about earlier. We've got people working in closets, but the city does have a process in place where they are looking at all the office space. They had a consultant in here. I know they were looking a lot towards here in Gorman Street, and I know how a lot of people feel about Gorman Street because that bills a lot. So they're looking at office space and what's best option there. I think that's going to be part of the new Central Services Director's initiatives to figure out where we can go and whether or not it's an office building. But essentially, we do need a floor of an office building for our command staff to operate, and then that would free up places in the fire stations.
Well, I'll say selfishly, I hope that your new office space is the Shaw Street, and then you get to be my neighbor because I live 3 houses down from you. Last question for me is, I see, so essentially your budget's going up by about $2 million. $1 million of that is the contractual services. The other is in salaries and benefits. And could you, or maybe this is better answered by the budget manager, could you break down for us what is causing that $1 million increase in salaries and benefits? Is that from prior negotiated union contracts? Is that some of our classic comp study? What's causing that change?
Yes, all the above. So the current contract that was approved was a 2-year contract with the International Association of Firefighters. That included the payroll study, that included their upgrades to the payroll system the way it is today with the 19 steps. So that's part of it. There are some bonuses within the fire service for our paramedics that are contract negotiations that are required. So there are some bonuses for that. There's some bonuses for our special operations people. We talked about the multiple hats. The union just wanted to make sure that the people were recognized that they were wearing multiple hats, so they have some bonuses there. So that's part of it. We have on-call pay for positions that we can't afford to staff for 24 hours, but we need to have. So those on-call positions get a little bit of pay every time. So that's the main part of it is just all negotiating items with the payroll system and going to the new pay grades that we went to.
Thank you. Anything to add, Budget Manager?
I'll just add too, I mean, Chief touched on it a little bit, but we did increase our overtime based on what we're seeing this year.
And that's to maintain that 25 people every day. That's where the
Right.
majority of that overtime goes. And that's just, and that's where we need to be at least at that 25. And as you heard, I wanted to go to the 26 to at least start one suppression piece with that. And then it would be nice to have that daytime crew. I do believe that we could do the medic unit, that it would pay for the salaries. The day work, that peak time medic unit would pay for the salaries with EMS billing. But until we were able to get that in there and see how it works, we don't know where that is. But I do believe that peak time unit, which is needed, would pay for itself.
And so that's interesting to me. So what you're saying is to make that happen, you would need to buy an additional unit. If it would pay for itself, what do we need to do to get you to that point?
Well, I think that's a bigger question, is how to work that out with finance to see how we can do that, because they allocate the money, the EMS billing money and all goes to the general fund or however they do that. So, and it's calculated into our budget. So even though that's calculated in our budget, we wouldn't the new salary or the new responses wouldn't be calculated in there because we haven't seen what that would do yet. But
Right.
that unit would run more calls than it does currently as the peak time medic unit by transferring the two crews, because that crew's not always in the station available to run that medic unit when it's needed.
Okay. Yeah. Let's maybe we can talk some more about that. Not in a whole hearing.
Yeah.
Alderman Arnett, I turn it to you.
I have no question. No, you know me better.
Yeah, that would be a shocker.
I just looked at
Yeah, I'm like, what's that?
I actually only have one question, but I wanted to note in passing, I'm noticing that this is to the budget manager. Everybody's paying for Gmail. Is that something that then goes over to IT?
Historically, that has been in IT. We now allocate that to the departments based on their use.
My one question is there a SAFER grant in the offing?
So that when the budget instructions came out, basically we were told any enhancements you look at, figure out how you're going to pay for it. We know that, we are the insurance policy that nobody really wants to pay for until you need it. But we know that tax increases probably is not on the table for that. So we are suggesting that if the SAFER grant comes up, we did not get the SAFER grant last year. As you know, we asked for this peak time medic unit last year. With that, we did not get the SAFER grant that year. Currently, the federal funds are all tied up. So who knows? We will be asking, because we believe that's a way to get it started, that we will be asking to be able to apply for the SAFER grant if it's available. But we would definitely want you to know that it's a priority all around either way. But we understand that, we have to figure out how to pay for this. And
It is included in Appendix B of the grant schedule for Appendix B. It's included there.
Okay, thank you. So for my colleagues that don't know, I know Alderwoman Finlay says if you receive a SAFER grant, it finances X number of salaries for 3 years, but that's a permanent increase in the staffing
Correct.
for the fire department. So it has a long tail. On the other hand, Chief, you mentioned the second thing you mentioned was concerns about staffing level. And I know that's always a concern, but that's what reminded me of the SAFER grant. And you pretty much answered in your response to the chair about the different staffing concerns. Anyway, I'll just mention in passing, my wife and I have also been frequent flyers in the EMS service. So I certainly am expressing gratitude for that care.
Thank you all very much for being here. Then, if there are no further questions, we really appreciate your time. And again, I just want to say how much I really appreciate how data driven your performance measures are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to recess until 10:45 a.m.
Move to recess.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're called back to order. Director Moore and team, thank you very much for being here with us today. We're excited to hear a little bit about your budget. And at this time, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, good morning, Finance Committee, Chairman Huntley, Alderpersons Finlayson, O'Neill, and Arnett. For the record, I'm Marcus Moore, Director of Transportation, and I have joined with me today Ms. Oriana Ornelas, our Accounting Associate, with Mr. Kwaku Dua, our Deputy Director here in Transportation. So we're pleased here to present to you and discuss any questions that you might have or will have about the Department of Transportation's FY26 budget. As outlined in the budget book, our department's core functions are public transportation and the parking assets that the city has. The public transportation services, our transportation services includes fixed route, microtransit on-demand service, ADA complimentary paratransit. And within the area, our operational, within this area, our operations of, we operate a maintenance division led by our transportation superintendent, Mr. Jamar Parker, who plays a very critical role. And under his leadership, this includes our professional bus operators, dispatch supervisors, a skilled group of maintenance technicians who handle the majority of our fleet repairs, probably as much as 90% in-house, we're able to do ourselves. Our fleet includes a mix of cutaway, the smaller buses that you'll see on the street, anywhere as small as 8 passenger up to 16 passenger, and the larger transit buses. They operate across 5 fixed routes, and our service hours are as follows. Monday through Friday, we begin at 5:30 in the morning until about 10:45 p.m. Saturday, 7:15 in the morning until 10:45 p.m. And Sundays and holidays, 7 until 8. So back in the summer of 2024, we launched our microtransit on-demand service called GoTime. And this cooperative event was through an RFP process, and IT Curves, a technology company, was selected to design the scheduling software that we use to plan trips, power the trips for the GoTime. This replaced 2 of our underutilized services or routes. The Orange route, which operated Monday through Friday from 5:30 to 7, and the Purple route that picked up in the evenings and on Sundays and holidays. We'll share more data about how that ridership is working from its inception. This is a pilot program for 3 years. Whenever you have a pilot, you do want to do more than just a couple months, a year. To get the right data, you need about 3 years. So this was an enhancement that was in-house done, funded, I should say. At the end of these 3 years, which will be the summer of 2027, it'll have to go out for RFP bid if it's decided that we want to continue on with this microtransit service. And there's a lot of benefits for it. And it might not always be a cost savings, but how we handle coverage in the whole city, where you're not running a bus unnecessarily every 30 or 40 minutes to an area that may only need pickup on demand. And that's one of the core principles of what on-demand flexi service actually does. We're also proud to share with you that our transit development plan that you've heard a little bit about in first reader on the 14th has been finalized and is scheduled for public testimony this upcoming council meeting on Monday the 28th. Representatives from the transportation planning group called KFH will be here in consultation with us from the Department of Transportation to facilitate any questions that the public or you guys might actually have. So the TDP provides a forward-looking comprehensive strategy for enhancing public transit throughout the city of Annapolis. This is very, very much of a crucial role as we get funds from the federal government. It's required that every 5 years a transit development plan is performed. We are considered a locally operated transit system, or better known as a LOT. There's 22 of them in the state of Maryland, from far west as Hagerstown, Cumberland, down to Ocean City. And we do rely on, we're sub-recipient of the state of Maryland's funding for transportation. So we do follow their lead, but some of the things that will be in the TDP require council's adoption because there may be additional funds that are needed to actually operate and service what our needs are in our city. And as the other part, I've talked about parking. Our parking asset management operations is currently outsourced to SP Plus, which is a division of Metropolis. SP oversees the parking management of all city assets outside of what we call the concession area. The concession area is a part of the whole P3 with the rebuild of Hillman Garage and City Dock. And it's largely in Ward 1, Districts 1 and 2. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we go along. We're going to dive into a little more of our actual presentation here, and then we'll be able to entertain any questions. So what we see here, some of the highlights that we also have in our budget book, but we converted to, as I mentioned, 2 low-performing routes, the orange and purple, to the on-demand. We took ownership or delivery of 2 fully electric buses and one DC 180 kilowatt fast charger. We had a media event earlier this month to showcase them, and now they're rotating around on different routes to get the sample of it. As we talked about the transit development plan, that's, it's been done, and we want to discuss that with you and some of the ideas that have come up. We have 6 smaller buses that will be used on the ADA, the microtransit service that will be coming, I would think, before the end of this month. It could be next week, but we're looking forward to having those. Those are 8-seaters, and that works out really well in the application for microtransit and ADA. Generally, we never have more than 7 or 8, 10 people at most if we've ever had on ADA. So the other small buses that you see around, we talk about cutaway. If you think about the Magenta Shuttle, that's considered a cutaway bus. Ours is a 16-seater. The one that's run through a subcontractor, Reston, is a 23-seater. But they're substantially smaller than our full 30-foot transit buses. So looking ahead to FY26 and expected trends and events, the automatic vehicle locator, which is a really good tool, we hear as AVL. On your phones, you may have heard us talk about the transit app. You can download it. It's in like 450 communities throughout the United States. So you can use that, put your location finder on, and you'll see, let's say you're at the mall and you put in 160 Duke of Gloucester. It's going to give you right now a predictor of how to get here in different modes, whether it's walking, biking, or the bus. And it will tell you at this time of day, the bus would be the green route. And it has a predictor of the schedule to tell you what the time the bus is expected to come. With an AVL system, it's going to tell you exactly when the bus will come. From behind the scenes, as we talked about the operation of dispatch, we put the bus number in, now it's live. We change out a bus, we got to put that bus in, or else you're going to see a bus sitting at 308 Chickapin Round Road and wondering when my bus is coming. It's not moving. It hasn't moved in a while. So the AVL system, we're going to put that out for competitive bid probably next week or so, and we'll be able to give more information through the Transportation Committee and others to give you an update on this service. The transportation plan, you're going to see recommendations for a hybrid transportation system that would expand the microtransit or the realignment of some routes. When you look at us in the county, the redundancy or, those invisible borders, if you will, it's like, okay, the mall is the city of Annapolis, but it's actually the county. And that's a good transfer point for the county and for the city of Annapolis. So, when we look at some of this, we'll talk about it in the next slide, but how do we bridge those gaps and be able to get folks to where they want to go, whether it's Crofton to the light rail station and others, because the only downtown bus that we have for Baltimore is the MTA 70. So we want to really look at how we deal with an AVL system and how we're able to give good information out to the traveling public. So we talked about the acquisition of the 2 small battery electric buses. No, we didn't. This is the one. Those 2 are actually been obligated, and we expect those to come the latter part of this year or by second quarter FY26. As you can see with our fleet, we get new buses every so often, and luckily they're not all expiring because of age, useful life at once. So through the procurement process, through MDOT, MTA, and the grants that we get, like we did for the 2 larger fully electric buses. It's a cooperative event to purchase these buses. Performance measures, you're going to see some things here with the farebox recovery ratio. A national benchmark, if you look at CTAA or other places that say, what is a good recovery rate for a system that charges a fare? About 20%. Even MTA New York, which is probably the largest transit system in the United States, probably only has like 40%, and they may carry 1 million people a day. Some small areas, like maybe going Western Maryland, that may only collect 30,000 or whatever. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Because now I got to collect it, I got to prepare it, I got to make a deposit. It's going to cost me $28,000 to take in 30,000. We'll talk more about what we bring in and what that actually means. So our FY25 right now, year-to-date actuality of farebox recovery is 12.8%. And our proposed number for FY26 is that we can up that number to 15%. There are a few factors to take in consideration why it would be where it is. And some of the things would be, high ridership on the Magenta shuttle is free. So there are other areas there that we'll talk about how that actually works. So the benchmark also for operating cost per hour from the MTA is about $70 per hour. We had this fiscal year right now, we're at 101. And that would be because some of the changes we're doing, the dials that we're moving, the economic indicators to look at better service. Our proposed FY26 was 85. Our proposed FY26 is $85 an hour, and that's something that should be able to be met. I think if you look in the budget book how low we may have been at 1 year, and you can take a look at those measurements. We'll be happy to explain those more. But other content to be aware of is, like, when we talk about fare-free system, we're not opposed to it. But when you look at that, the funding sources for lost fare, how is it made up? Because part of that we get is not just the fare box. We get organizational paid fares and Department of Government Services, DGS, for their state employees, they actually pay, which will no longer come in. And that could be very close to $280,000. $280,000 plus our fare box revenue. Dr. Duell fact checked me. It's about $330,000 in FY25 for about that, just less around the $330,000. So it could be about just over $500,000 that would have to be made up somewhere else if we went fare free. And the other services that buy our passes, there's about 13 of them. But to give you an idea, a flavor: Lighthouse Shelter, Detention Center, Arundel Lodge, Anne Arundel County Department of Social Services, Crisis Center. Those all add up to about 15,000. So when you look at the full organizational paid fares, those two prongs that we'll get from the county, that may still come in because we're running a bit of our services into the county. Transition to zero emission bus fleet. Back in 2023, the calendar year, was estimated of a capital cost of about $13.7 million. And obviously with inflation, that's a lot more now. To give you a baseline, one of the fast chargers, the kilowatt, 180 kilowatt fast charger that we got for our two larger buses was about $91,000. The one that's coming with the two smaller is going to be about $130,000. So you can almost look at almost 40% more. We can only imagine what the estimated capital cost would be going to fully ZEB, zero emission bus fleet. And then with a lot of the federal funds being paused, that's really a point of contention that we really need to really look at what we can do going forward. The county and the Annapolis Transit, as I mentioned a little earlier, they're two different systems, one region, and how we address those service gaps. So we've been in conversation with our partners there in the Department of Transportation. They also use KFH for their transportation plan that was completed towards the first part of this fiscal year. I would say August or September. It was presented to their county council.
Director Moore, I just want to give you a heads up. You got about 3 minutes left.
Okay. Getting to the end there. Thank you, Chairman. One other thing to look at with our commingling of services and how we operate, another context to be aware of when we go electric, the BGE the budget for electricity to charge our new buses is expected to increase. That's what we have. So I did it in 13 and a half minutes. We're ready for the questions that you may have, and thank you for allowing us to present.
Thank you. Sometimes I like to start off with a big question, but I'm going to start you off with a fairly discreet one today. Last night, I was talking to somebody, and he was shocked that he did not have a way when he gets on the bus to just tap his credit card and pay. He said to me, if I could do that, I would take the bus to work. And because I can't, and I don't normally have cash on me, I don't take the bus.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of estimate of what it would cost us? And I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you have an estimate of what it might cost us to outfit our fleet with a way that folks could tap and pay?
We did a study some years ago with a transit app that came in maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I'm sure that number's changed. That can be done. When you look at the electronic fare box structure, we use TripSpark, and the other one that's really big is called GenFare. GenFare is used by MTA. So that, kind of goes with what you're asking. And one of the things they told us, because they have a lot of components that can be interchanged, we can definitely make it so that pass that they buy at Annapolis Transit can be used on MTA or vice versa. The first thing you would think about is, okay, who gets the money? And you're going to ride my bus for free. So the same thing can happen with this that you're asking. We'll just have to explore it a little bit more. And maybe we can that can be dropped into that spreadsheet that we can get back to you in a short period of time, the next few days, to give you some ideas on how much that would cost to outfit each bus with that technology.
Thank you. And just so I'm clear, I'm saying to be able to tap a credit card, not to be able to tap a transit pass.
Right. No, absolutely right. Yeah. Yep. To
Thank
get
you.
that's right.
I would have asked you ahead of time, but like I said, it got brought up to me last night.
Well,
Our current electronic fare box actually, with update of the software, could do that. So the capital cost is not going to be as huge as acquiring a new system altogether. I don't recall the number, but when we were procuring the electronic fare boxes, that was one of the things we did consider. But there is an extra fee for that. But we can look into that and give you an estimate of how much it will cost to ensure electronic payment on the buses.
Yeah, I would love that. And when you get back to us on that, if there's any way that we could add that fee onto the cost, right? So if it costs $50,000 and we estimate we're going to get an additional 100,000 riders, can we just add that on as a 50-cent fee on the credit card when somebody taps and they pay $250 instead of $2? I think we'd still get a lot of folks doing that. And I think it might also change the dynamics of who's riding, right? Like this guy was saying, he's a professional and wants to, not somebody who necessarily is always carrying cash. He's used to using a credit card. So yeah, if you can just get me back that, how much would it cost total? And is there a way that we could add it onto each purchase as opposed to it just being city funds? I would love to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Alderwoman Finlayson.
Thank you, Mr. Moore and your team. I'm always asking about transit and funding. I'm looking at page 118 in the budget book where it gives a revenue projection of, and we're talking in the proposed, a little over $4 million. And so I wasn't clear, and maybe Mr. Trudeau could help with this, because it was mentioned yesterday about funding for transit. Like I said, I'm always concerned that we have adequate funding to cover transit. Where is that revenue stream coming from?
So
That gives us that balanced budget, or is it Dr. Duwa, whomever?
yeah, so the total Jake Trudeau, budget manager, for the total revenues for transportation is $6.6 million. $4 million of that is a transfer from the parking fund. Let's say we can see grants here are a little over 1.3 million. And like we talked previously, right? That is remains pretty constant throughout the years. So those are the two buckets. The rest of that comes from a combination of a county revenue source of $350,000 and some bus fares that we've talked about, passes and tickets. We get $265,000 yearly from the state, and $160,000 of that is advertising.
So the additional 2 million, because looking back at the proposed and the actual for 2025, it's 2 million, from
Yep. So you're
1.6 up to 2.
It looks like you're looking specifically in the other revenues line, which is that transfer from the parking fund. So the parking fund is supplementing this fund.
In total.
Are you I'm sorry. So can you specify the number that you're talking about again?
I'm looking at on page 118, under revenues, other revenues, and it's 4.076. And it jumps from 2.1, from 2.8, 2.7. I just want to make sure the funding is there.
Oh yeah, that's what I just.
I see now. Okay.
So if we're talking about the intergovernmental piece, so what I had mentioned was just talking about the other revenues line, which is
That's what I was talking about.
Oh,
the
okay.
Revenues line,
Okay.
not the intergovernmental.
I think you have to take into consideration the line above it, because if you're looking at the fiscal year 2025 projected versus the fiscal year 2026 proposed, you'll see there's an increase in the other revenue in 2026 proposed, but a decrease in the intergovernmental. And that's probably, I would think, due to ARPA funds.
I'm still not clear. There's a decrease in the intergovernmental because that's only 350,000 in the proposed 26.
Yep. So what Ms. Fleury was mentioning is, last year, so in 25 and 24, we had programmed ARPA to help balance the fund. Those funds were fully committed in 25, and we could not program them in 26, right? So to your point, we were talking about to cover that issue, the funding issue that we had, the parking fund had to then transfer more money than they have previously to make sure that the transportation fund balances.
Okay, so that is coming from the parking fund.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is, I hate to use the term guaranteed, but it's available.
It is
know
it's
you don't wanna
available.
say
I would
that
never say it's
either.
guaranteed.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you to make a commitment. Yeah, no question about it.
I would just add that it's far from guaranteed. And I think that's the reason
What,
why
what kind of guarantee?
I said it's far from guaranteed. And I think that's the overarching issue or concern with the parking fund and the transportation is maybe guaranteed for now, but
Correct.
the fund balance will run out.
Absolutely.
If I can just give an overall that might add some clarity. So
Please.
the parking fund supports the transportation fund with the transfer. The reason why there is guaranteed, unguaranteed right now in that fund, in the parking fund to transfer to transportation is largely due to the one-time funding that was put into the parking fund from the proceeds from the closing of the trust during the construction project. So if an ongoing transfer is needed from the parking fund to transportation, that fund balance is going to dwindle and there's no longer going to be that $4 million that's coming over.
So for the future, it's very tenable. But right now, and I'm saying right now being 26, it appears as if it's going to be available.
Correct.
Okay.
We are good for 26.
Okay. I'm good with that. All right. One other question. We do give away a lot of free service. And we look at our fare box rate, which is low. And I remember when the national fare box rate used to be like 35%. And now we're down to 20. So it's not just us nationwide. If we, and I know this is blasphemy, if we stop giving free services, would we then be able to pay for the services we provide?
Not quite. Sure. Because when you look at the fares that we're charging, even if there was no discount for senior students or the like, full fare, if everybody paid $2, probably would not, it'll tick up, but very single digit percentages to get to that 20-25% maybe. You'd really look at a large fare increase, which would elasticity of the market would not allow. Going back to like 2012, where we went from $1 to $2 and we reduced the frequency of operation, meaning that the headways were double, we lost probably a good 50% or more back in 2012 of our ridership. So the powers and the numbers of riders, and as Alderman Huntley made mention, the person that would like to travel, how do we get those that have an option? Because we're catching most people that have no option. And sometimes if I can have the convenience of the free parking wherever I might be, and I can just navigate the traffic, I still may not. But still making it more of a, the journey to the destination, and making it, as long as it's remains safe, reliable, convenient, and those are the big factors that we can control. But, like you said, the 30 some odd percent, and as I made mention, MTA's 40 something percent, it's really hard unless your system is that much bigger and you start, tweaking it. New York City, it's a luxury to own a vehicle. So people are going to ride, those kind of things. So it's a good thought, but we probably have to think outside the box on how do we do more with what we have. And I think that's the microtransit plan. I think we'll cover more. The ridership will go up, but there is a cost there. It is pretty expensive, even though it may be reduction in miles, because reduction in miles means reduction in the amount of preventive maintenance you have to do, a tire change, oil change, and the like. But we're serving more and doing more with what, people want. Going from the mall to Eastport on the Purple at night can take you 40 minutes because it's going to make every single stop. If not so many people on it, you might make it in, 1/3 of that time. So now it's a viable option for me to do that if I have a night shift at the mall. But we need to look at other options to bring those numbers up, to better our service, and how do we subsidize public transportation.
Well, I would like for us to change how we look at transportation. We don't think about fare box in policing. We don't think about fare box in public works. We are a service organization, and transportation, like police, like fire, like public works, are services. And we should think about transportation as a service similarly, instead of treating it like the stepchild that we've got to figure out how to pay for every year. I really resent the fact that we are having to scrounge to pay for transit. And maybe not this year, but we have in the past, and it looks like we will in the future. I think we should look at it like all of our other departments that are services that are provided. It is true that the audience for transit is different. And unfortunately, sometimes it's those who need it the most, those who are disadvantaged. But I contend we should treat it like any other program, any other service that we have in the city. So we should automatically fund transit, just like we automatically fund police.
You're absolutely right. And I'll let you go. That we're like a library as well. We provide that service. And during general session, there was, House Bill 430, is companion State Bill 20, which asks for obligation of appropriations to go to that funding that we get that's been stuck at FY24 level. But we want to add on inflation, not to exceed 5%. It never made it out of committee. So that was for all the lots. So if we can get the drill down from the MTA, from the state level, and of course federal level is a whole other story, but how do we fund this where it could be a free service and we can provide the service that we need? That way we don't have to worry about other ways or forms of payment and all, but we want to provide that service for all to get about our city. And that would probably help out a lot with parking downtown.
Yeah, all the way around though. So on to funding from MTA, and I know that with their funding comes restrictions on how we use their dollars and how we can't use their dollars. Do you expect a significant or any sort of decrease from MTA, and how is that going to impact?
First of all, about the way we have to think of transportation services, that we need to change that. The county actually sees transportation service as a service to be paid for by everybody. That's why the county system is now free. So for them, there is no question about fare box revenue. Charles County actually has changed the way it looks at transportation as a service to the public. So Charles County Transit, there is no fare. It's fully funded by the county government. We don't expect any decrease in MTA funds. If, for instance, we go to fare free, our fund that we get is based upon what the state actually gets from two sources, from the federal government and also from the state government. So, for instance, in FY25, you were asked to reduce our fixed route grant application by 40%. So if you go to the grant portion, you will notice that the FY25 original budget was a much smaller number. But when the award came in, it was much higher. So we do expect at least that the current level of funding from MTA or through MTA will remain the same or even better.
That's good news. Absolutely, it is. So, I think that was my last question. Thank you. And you didn't introduce I knew Dr. Dua, but I didn't know the other young lady who's accompanying you.
I'm sorry if I omitted that. Miss Oriana Ornalis is our accounting associate too. Joined us just before Thanksgiving, but she's come this way before as being a part of the finance committee, so she's very in tune with how the city finances work.
Well, welcome. Now,
What did I say?
was this the position that used to be in finance, and we moved it over to transportation?
No, not quite. We had a accounting associate 1 and 2 originally.
Okay.
Miss Ornalis, I'm sorry, she worked in the finance department, and then through the not the bid process, but the application process, came over to with us.
Okay. Well, either way, however you got there, welcome. So, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
MP.
Director Moore, I got a handful of questions for you, but one is that I notice you have 2 positions fewer in this budget than in the last one. I think one of those is going to Central Services. Am I correct on that?
No, 2 fewer would be part-time jobs. One was a part-time transit mechanic, a technician, and one was a part-time operations supervisor. Those 2 were being combined to make a full-time contractual operations supervisor. So those 2 combined there. No, we didn't have anyone that went over to Central Services, but those are the 2 that we have. And I think we, Mr. Trudeau, we made the change on our staffing summary that they have. Okay. Where it has the bike ped micromobility coordinator to be in a contract box.
But if I'm looking at your budget, you guys actually do have a significantly lower budget than last year, which is, I think you're the only department I can say that for. or at least, sorry, maybe I should say that's in the transportation fund, has a, what's it, about $600,000 less. So I'm just wondering what is, what's causing that? And maybe I'll give you a little bit of congratulations, because like I said, I think you're the only department I've seen that.
I'm not- oh. Which page is it?
Mr. Chair, could you repeat your question, please?
Sure. In the transportation fund expenses, they are about $600,000 lower for FY26 than for FY25. What's causing that?
It looks it looks like to me a majority of that is in salaries and benefits.
Yeah, it seems like it's coming out of salaries and benefits mostly, and a little bit out of capital outlay. But if we're converting those two positions to one full-time, it's not like we're not getting rid of 6 employees. What's causing such a big difference?
Yeah, one of the things, those are two, the part-time jobs didn't have any benefits at all, just the time that they worked. The contractual full-time one is just not a part of the civil service part. But part of that with the capital outlay would be the reduction in purchase of vehicles.
Sure.
But the budget of salaries, I'm not sure.
So I can research that and get back to you.
Okay. Alderman Finlayson?
Thank you. But that leads to a question. If you're converting two part-time, one full-time to two part-time, what about benefits? Do both part-time people get benefit?
The part-times did not.
That's what I thought. So we're
the
converting a
benefits for full-time
full-time to
contractual is
part-time.
less.
So there's
No,
a savings.
It's 2 part-time.
Right. Two part-time people
Yeah.
going from one full-time person.
No, it's the other way
Oh,
around.
the other way around, yeah. The
So two part-time for one. Okay. So then there's an addition of benefits in that case.
Yes.
Okay. I'm clear. Got to check the benefits. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, yeah, I want to be able to commend your department for some belt tightening. If we can figure out what notch that belt is on, to keep the analogy. I'll say again, I like that you guys have very quantifiable metrics. I appreciate that. Thank you. We talked a little bit about the fare box metric and why you're proposing for that to go down. I am excited to see that the benchmark for % of residential parking district that's covered is going up. And it seems like that's in line with what you've actually been doing. You've been exceeding the benchmark. Could you just talk a little bit more about how you think you've been able to exceed the benchmark so far and why you're deciding to change that performance metric?
To clarify, you're speaking the benchmark for parking?
Yeah, this is a parking benchmark, and it is % of residential parking district area covered by daily enforcement.
I think pretty much better scheduling, because that's a subset of our subcontractor, just a SP plus. Better scheduling from their management of, the old management by wandering around and looking at what's actually happening. They do a pretty good job of how they manage districts 3, 4, 5 along the way. And I guess their monthly meetings, they've been really just talking very heavily to their PEOs on what the expectations are, and now starting to see the fruits of their labor of management.
And so that is not inclusive of the concession.
That is correct.
Okay, got it. See, that's why.
Yeah.
All right, let me just write that.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned this phrase earlier. I think it was safe, convenient, reliable, right? And I appreciate that. Those seem like great goals. I might include as a goal, just my thought. I don't know how to put this in a word, but it doesn't seem like how quickly a bus comes is something that is included in, right?
That's a good question, because that's called a headway.
Headway, right.
And when you have less buses out there, or let's look at that purple route, which is an underperformer, that headway had to be like an hour and 15 minutes. Because that was the longest route. It encompassed all the others we called rainbow routes to cover the whole city.
Mm-hmm.
There was just 2 buses to transverse. those areas. So if you can keep your headways under 30 minutes, and that's one of the key points of microtransit on demand, because one of the goals that we've imposed on ourselves is that the time that call is made or that reservation is made, we're giving ourselves 20 minutes, and we're meeting that about 85% of the time. So the same thing would be asked about our other on-time performance, as you can see where we are. Anything we're looking at, time checkpoints. So we're trying to get about 100 per month for fixed route. ADA, we're at, right at the 100%, and the industry standard is like within the 30 minutes, but we're saying within 15 minutes. And because of our geographics of where we are at the city, our complimentary paratransit can go within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed route stop. So we can position ourselves to generally be there within the 15 minutes. So your question is very good when you look at how quickly what those headways are.
Yeah.
Because that's, again, going back to the AVL. Because if I put in my location finder where I am and where I want to go, I can make that informed decision of
Right.
do I wait or do I take Uber or walk or whatever.
And so the reason I'm asking about that is I wonder if you all would be open to adding a performance metric around headway. It sounds like you have one internally.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Two things. If you are thinking of on-time performance, we already have it. To use headway, i.e. the frequency, and you want a more frequent service, it has huge financial implications.
Sure, absolutely.
For instance, we do have 2 buses on the green route. The headway currently is 30 minutes. Okay. So if you want to reduce the headway from 30 to 15, we have to add 2 more buses and 2 more drivers.
Right.
So putting in as a goal basically will actually have a huge financial implication. So if you want to do that, then we need to go back to calculate how much it will cost in order to meet certain specific headways. Currently, we do have it. Most of them is 30 minutes for the fixed route. For microtransit, we set 20. We believe that with additional smaller buses on the microtransit, they will be much more responsive, that we can work something around. But even with additional buses, that will mean more drivers to drive those buses. They are smaller, so we don't need the CDL drivers to do that, but at least it will also add to increased costs, driver costs, salaries, even if you're using a part-time. So whilst we appreciate that, we would like to bring it to attention that if we were to make the headway much shorter, meaning more frequent, as we see in most of the large urban areas, Toronto, for instance, during the rush hours, every 10 minutes you see a bus or a tram.
Sure.
It's a huge cost.
Let me just interject. I would not want to impose one on you that would then cause huge financial implications. But I do think it could be something that's good to measure and have in our what we're measuring by. But I think there's probably a way that you're much smarter than I am to do it on breaking it out by paratransit, by on-demand, by you used the phrase earlier about routes to go all the way across the city versus ones that are just in one part. So I guess where I'm getting at is I think it's something that would be good to measure and monitor. Sure. And I'd ask you all to, even if not necessarily in this budget, consider that going forward. Coming back to one of the bigger questions, right? I said I'd start off with small ones. Let's say, and again, I preface this for the fire department. It's not anything personal, but this is a question I'm going to be asking more and more often. Let's say we weren't able to make that transfer from the parking fund into the transit fund. Let's say your funds were cut by, what would that be about? I think that'd be about 40%, right? But let's say 20%. Say we could only make half of it. Where would you be looking first at where we would have to cut if your funds were cut by 20%?
Yeah, we'll probably, Kwaku and I will kind of weigh in, but we'll look at the other lower performing routes and we'll have to do furloughs. So we'll definitely we'll look at what our ridership is on those routes and how we can realign to still not lose coverage in some of the key areas. That would be the biggest, because our biggest driver, I'm sure in most budgets as well, would be staff salary benefits. You want to add anything?
Well, in addition to that, currently the downtown shuttle is free. It costs upwards $500,000, so that could be an option to charge. We know that when we did introduce it as a circulator, it was free. I do recall some time ago, it came back, increased $1.50 here and there, and went back to free. Again, if you think of it as a service, then it's a great service to be free. But if you want us to get the revenue to pay for, or if there is a cut in the funding, then we need to look at service reduction, as happened in 2014. The idea of service reduction to meet costs actually leads to a downward spiral where it will increase costs and even reduce the revenue further. We have been on that track before about 11 years ago, and we can revisit that and then see what we did and lessons learned from that.
Thank you. Last question for me, I think. A criticism that I hear more of our transportation functions and other areas is that they can be difficult for seniors to navigate. Whether that is, and I know this is outside of your control, but the app at Hillman Garage, whether it is even as we're talking today about using the transit app, and that's a phenomenal function for me, for the guy I was talking about earlier. But I bet if I asked one of our former mayors about that, she might not have as positive of a view. So my question to you is, how does the department think about making sure that as we move to having more technology, and I know that is a good thing, that it's continuing to be inclusive of seniors? And are there any potential enhancements in the budget that you think we could add to enhance that?
Yeah, kind of a few things that we can look at. One of the good things is with our microtransit and what we're doing here with the app. You can always still call in. Some people don't use their phone to pay for things, and I'm that baby boomer. I don't use my phone to pay for anything. I still do the credit card and all that kind of stuff. So some people don't want to go that route, and they don't want to make a reservation that way. They still can do the old-fashioned way of calling in the office. One of the other things for our seniors, by law with ADA, you can charge up to twice as much for ADA, and that's your curb to curb. So for a senior on fixed route is $1, but a senior on our complimentary paratransit is $4 because it's twice the full rate.
Right.
So that's something can be looked at. I think the county might have looked at the age requirements. It used to be 60, maybe it's 50 or 55, verified in advance. To do that, because with our ADA, you still have to do that pre-screening, if you will. Those are the two things, because if it's cost prohibitive to do something like that, the Go Time has really helped out quite a bit with touching upon a lot of senior communities or high rises, and they can do that at a regular rate of $1. Yeah. Because now remember, we're getting in 3/4 of a mile of that fixed route stop. So, the same thing applies for the fixed, the microtransit, Go Time, or the paratransit. So if I can do microtransit for $1 or paratransit for $4, that's a little bit better for me. But remember, where I may be going might not be as convenient to where I'm getting on.
Sure.
So we can explore that. And it might have come up a little bit in the TDP when we had our stakeholders and shareholders come in, and there was a vast amount of folks, from our bus drivers to our community, and we've invited quite a few people to come and give their thoughts. Going back to June, I believe it was that it started. Yeah. Did you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just in terms of transit technology and seniors, the ADA is one of our guides. So even when we think of mobile form of payment on the buses, we have to make a room for cash payment. We cannot go full electric because not everybody is required. Another federal guide is the 36 of the Civil Rights Act. There are several areas which applies to transit. Because of that, actually, we do have 36 implementation plan to make sure that whatever that you do to the transit services, seniors, disadvantaged people, people of different race are not negatively impacted more than the others. So if you look at the TDP, for instance, there is a section on 36 that whatever recommendations is in the TDP, before we actually implement that, we need to look at the 36 implication of that. So they are very covered. And as the director said, it's not only the app, there is always a phone number for people to call because we know that not everybody is savvy with the app.
Yeah.
So we make protections for seniors in everything that we do. Again, also for the fare reduction program, seniors, I believe 60 years and plus, actually ride for $1. So these are some of the protections we also provide for seniors because of the fact that most of them may live on fixed income, low income. So these are all there to help our seniors use the public transportation system.
Thank you. And sorry, to Alderman Arnett, I realized I do have one more question.
I can have it.
Oh my God. Did I completely skip over you?
Yes, you did.
Oh my gosh. I am so sorry. Okay. Well, I yield my time to Alderwoman O'Neill. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. I can ask you. I just have two questions, and maybe you talked about this, but I was actually distracted a few minutes ago by something. The budget highlights creating the separate budget for the in-house parking. Should we talk about that?
Sorry, please repeat.
So under budget highlights, it says creates a separate budget for in-house parking operations, headed by the parking program manager.
So that's just, if I may help, we just in 25 we have the parking program manager under transportation. We just moved that in 26 to parking fund.
Great. Okay, that was one question. My second question is, I get asked time and time again about building a partnership with the county to help high school students, whether they are staying after school for after school sports or ROTC or music or whatever. Has that been discussed, and what would that look like budget wise if we were to run something that was specifically not going to the mall first and then there, or from school to the mall, but something that went from the high school?
Yep, that's a part of the TDP. And that's a realignment of a route. Some years ago, the Brown route used to actually do that. When we operated the yellow route under our portfolio, if you will, that all is the county, and that goes right to the Heritage turnaround there. But that is a potential thought to do that. So we have 3 Browns out there in A, B, and C. Maybe one of them. During COVID, we took one away, and we just put it back about a year and a half ago, towards the end of COVID. One may be the third one, the C or the A, we could go down to the Heritage turnaround like it used to, or dedicate one to go on a traverse of Forest Drive, starting from Eastport, Forest Drive, down around to the high school and back. And that would, obviously go to 7 o'clock, and then we would have the pickup in our evening service. So that is something to explore, and that would be a cost, but it will be something that will be brought before you to digest. And because it's in the county, remember, we're getting the help from the county when we run things like that. And that may be something that, the county would definitely look for our help with, for bridging those gaps. Because if you look back at some of the things we did mention, our slide number 6, other context to be aware of, the county and Annapolis Transit, 2 different systems, 1 region. How do we address those service gaps? And that is a very important one that we get often. That was also brought up in our discussions.
Yeah. I think on the slide number 4, looking ahead, we did talk about the TDP. It has huge financial implications because the TDP proposes expanding the microtransit into 3 different zones. At the same time, realignment of the existing, the red, the brown, and then green. In the TDP also, it also talks about the potential blue route. It's a concept right now. So with the expanded microtransit in the blue route, that will cover the high school area. And that could mean that will have financial implications for the budget. We don't expect it to happen in the FY26 because we have to do a project level planning, which is more detailed and coordinated with the county. We have been in discussion with the county almost every month about addressing service gaps between the 2 systems. The county has hired a consultant to look at that. So we are working with them. We have provided them with some information. So we expect the county's consultant to finish its work, and then whatever recommendations that they have in terms of bringing the service caps, we will bring it to council and the transportation committee for discussion and see how we can move forward with that kind of recommendation. But the TDP actually looks into that. The advisory group members were very, very big on the issue that we just brought up, and they were instrumental in crafting the recommendations in the TDP. So take a look at that, chapter 6.
It definitely. I confess I have not read it yet. I've been preoccupied with city budget. So anything in the TDP would most likely affect FY27 budget, not an FY26. Thank you.
One,
Sorry. Should I repeat? No.
we're at time, but I just want, sorry, you were finished, right, Alderwoman? Since I already skipped over you once.
Can I ask indulgence for just two urgent issues? One, I heard a lot of things that I like about adjusting the routes, smaller buses and EV, the on-demand, the AVL system. But on page 6 of your presentation, you point to the fact that the city and the county are running two different systems. Years ago, we had a study that said that 42% of the rides that originate in the city terminate in the county. It begs to me that we have a regional system, but the question is there an update to that study about where the rides are terminating? And I'll leave that as an open question. The real issue is on page 2 of your presentation, you point out that there are two functions. There's the transportation function and the parking function. And that is not addressed again. And you know, because Director Moore, I just played you a phone call from a person in my ward talking about parking. Yesterday, I got a very angry email from a constituent talking about the difficulties in using the parking garages, but the different enforcements. We have parking mobile in some places, we have SP Plus in others, and we have police in a third, and particularly for certain kinds of parking. And parking is, I don't hear complaints about the bus system in my ward. I hear complaints about parking enforcement. And there's really...
I have heard some of the things that you've made mention of. You know, if we're paying for parking, then they should be patrolling like a police officer. But for the whole city, you know, the seven square miles and all, they'll look at hotspots and request. It's, you know, with just X amount of people, let's even say that they have 8. You know, it's going to, where do they go? That's 1 per ward. Still trying to catch every street that is in the city proper, if you will. The best bet would be actually to call and let them know. But as you shared with me, we need to make sure everybody knows where to call. And
can I make a quick, because time is short? We really need on the city's webpage a big new button that says where to go for parking. Nobody knows. They all call me. I have to search where it is and what it is. And it is not clear. SB Plus has been pretty good about enforcement, but it's basically on demand. It's not, as you say, mobile roving enforcement, but also people just don't know where to go. And so they end up trying to call me or other alderpersons or just doing without. But I think that if we can really give a one-stop spot website, that could help get people to where they need to go to learn about how they can get enforcement. I've already suggested this to Brian Paquin and the IT people. There really needs to be some big flashing budgets on the buttons on the city's website for these commonly asked questions that are very hard to But anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting.
no, very, very good point. And we can bring that to the top, because under transportation, then you'll see all these. But like you said, just knowing where to go to start. But if we bring that to the top, not just with a press release and all, but certain buttons at the top of frequently asked questions. And as Hillman was being rebuilt, that's what exactly happened. Here are the frequently asked questions about what the concession area consists of. That stays there. But, you know, we need to redesign, and we can deal with the IT department to help us redesign for those things that we're hearing needs clarity or ease of use.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair, but these are really burning issues.
You know, parking is the number one thing I hear about as well. And I bet it's the number one thing Director Moore hears about as well.
Yes, sir.
So I did have one last thing I just want to get on the record, that I had asked you before this about the breakdown in our maybe concession is not the right word, in our waterfall payment between on-street versus garage, and the breakdown between fees between, let's call them fines versus fees. I was told that is not information the Transportation Department has. Can we confirm on the record that that is information the Finance Department will have with their presentation on the day we have that scheduled?
Confirmed, we can have that.
Let me rephrase. Will we have that?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
As it relates to transportation and
Right.
not finance, but we actually have to request the information and request the actual payment, that waterfall payment. So
Right.
that all comes to us through that company. It's
Right.
not our data, but yes.
Sure. That is, I think, very important data for us to have to know the vulnerabilities in our transportation fund, which is funded by our parking fund, which is funded by this. And if what we believe is happening, I'll speak for Alderwoman O'Neill here because I know she and I talk about it a lot. If what we believe is happening, which is that we're getting these huge fines, and that's ultimately decreasing the number of people who pay the fees in the long term, we have to be even more worried than we already are about our structural deficit in our transportation fund. So this is utterly crucial information for us to have. But I really want to make sure that by the time we have our Finance Department presentation, that is there and it is information that the council has. We need it. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adjourn and thank the Transportation Committee or the Transportation team for their presentations.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a
That was
second
a
on
motion.
that?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.